online, on Radio Player, and on 106.6 FM. This is Wycombe Sound, the Wycombe Wanderers Show.
A very good evening and welcome to episode 8. We're not counting them, are we?
We're not, no. Stop counting.
We stopped counting at 4, I think. I've already overdone it. Welcome along, though. A fantastic week as we celebrate Wycombe Wanderers' first point in the Championship.
Oh, it was fantastic on Tuesday night. It was really good. And everybody at Adams Park had a big grin on their face, who was of the light and dark blue persuasion.
And against Watford as well.
Indeed. I couldn't see it at all. As I said to Luke on drive time, when I was reporting in from the ground beforehand, I thought Watford probably would win fairly comfortably. And the fact that it didn't happen, but it goes back to the thing we keep saying. Wycombe have played so well in the majority of games so far this season and do not deserve to be where they are in the Championship. And it was fantastic that actually against Watford, finally, we got a point.
And so cruel to have that point snatched away on Saturday at Norwich as well.
Oh dear, yes. Gavin Ward, you won't be forgiven in these parts for a long, long time. Definitely, no, sorry, Mr. Referee, you weren't very good on Saturday.
So coming up in the next hour, we'll get Gareth Ainsworth's thoughts post those two games. We'll also hear from free kick and corner specialist Joe Jacobson as well.
We'll be hearing from Matt Cecil about the club's decision not to publish a programme on Tuesday for the first time in years.
Parklife.
Indeed.
Also, we'll be chatting to 50s striker Dennis Atkins. Some fantastic stories, including he played, in fact, in the first time Wycombe played Watford in 1959.
He loves a bit of it, he does. And we'll also be hearing from Will the chef. We're not exactly sure whether Will is the chef for Wycombe Wanderers or somewhere else, but we're going to find that out later on. But he has been heavily involved in the club's decision to be giving free meals to school children, which of course happened today between 12 and 2 and will be happening again tomorrow. It was David Wheeler who actually came up with the initiative, obviously from Marcus Rashford's campaign, but a fantastic thing that the club are doing, and hats off to them.
Absolutely, it's a great initiative and a great thing to do during half term. So let's kick off this evening by casting our minds back to last Saturday and Carrow Road. You made the trip to Norwich.
I did.
You said on last week's show you had to take extra care. Yes. Or concentrate.
Yes, I said I didn't like going to Norwich because you have to concentrate. It's not just like a motorway where you can just sit on it, but it's an A road with lots of roundabouts, which is slightly frustrating. But I did manage to get there safely without the police stopping me, and got home again as well, even though it was blowing a bit of a gale on the way back. Sorry, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but once again, we played so well. Obviously, Norwich scored really, really early on, and you did sort of think, oh, okay, this is how this afternoon's going to go. It's going to be more like Blackburn again. But no, within a couple of minutes, actually, Wycombe fought their way back into it. Obviously, we then scored again, which was, just fantastic. Scott Cashgate getting his second goal of the season. And then hung on for, about 79 minutes. Until so cruelly and unfairly, Norwich then were awarded a free kick. And okay, all right, probably the free kick was a free kick. But there had been many, many decisions before that the referee Gavin Ward definitely got wrong. Most notably of all, the fact that a Norwich player who had already been yellow carded then did commit a foul. And really, that should have been a penalty. Foul on Fred in the penalty area. And you thought, right, okay, this should be a penalty, and if so, then probably you're getting a second yellow card, so we would have been in with the opportunity to go 2-1 up against 10 men. But no, the referee and pretty much everybody in Carrow Road thought it was. Everybody in the press box, not only those that were supporting Wycombe, but it was, everybody was saying definite Stonewall penalty. But no, Gavin Ward waved it away. You do start to wonder. I don't really want to be calling for VAR in the Championship because I don't think it adds very much. I think the Premier League games, the people that I know that have sort of had to live with it week in, week out say that it's not very good. But those decisions, you do think, well, yeah, actually, maybe we should have VAR in the Championship.
Because Gareth alludes to it, but do you think it's because, Wycombe are new to the division and the more established teams get the decisions go
Definitely.
their way?
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be how it is. And again, I know that that's something that you see time and again in the Premier League, that it's very much felt that, the big six teams, particularly if they're playing one of the smaller teams, normally get the decision. And it seems to be exactly the same in the Championship, that yes, the referee, looked at it and thought, well, yes, okay, Norwich have probably got more talented players than Wycombe, so therefore does that mean Wycombe are more likely to foul and more likely to be trying to deceive to get the decisions? And I can only conclude that yes, that's what he and some of his colleagues think. The fact that we heard that it'll be all right in the Championship, you'll get better referees. No, I don't think the evidence so far has shown that.
So frustration to end the game on Saturday up at Carrow Road, and that was echoed in Bob's questions to Gareth.
Gareth, I feel gutted and slightly furious, whereas actually you look very, very calm at the moment.
That's all right. I'm not going to lose it. I'm 7 games into a Championship season, which, if I'm honest, was beyond our wildest dreams, and we're absolutely loving. The performance today was superb, really, really was, and I'm glad that there's a handful of people here. I hope they're going to report good things about that, because crazy start. We seemed to be the opposite of what I was asking, but as soon as they scored, we slipped into gear. Great goal for us to get back in it, well deserved, and then penalty shout, which I cannot believe the referee hasn't given. And if he gives the penalty, it's got to be a red card as well. There's a potential another booking on somebody. We're just not getting it at the moment. Wycombe seem to be on the end of some decisions that are baffling me at the moment, but maybe it's because we're this new club in the Championship that not many people have heard of, but we're making a noise, and performances like that will go a long way in securing our future, and I'm really, really proud of the boys today.
I mean, what I always think is brilliant about you is you are very fair about referees, but I'm assuming that Gavin Ward is not going to be on your Christmas card list this year.
Listen, I wouldn't like to be a ref, I always say that. I just hope that the eyes around the world will see that and go, you know what, they were hard done by today, and it's not all about results. Performances are important, very important, and every single boy in that dressing room has given me everything. As a manager, what more can I ask? That's all I can ask, and it's up to me to get it right tactically and selection wise. And it's just gone against us today. I think everything was spot on. Just tiny little detail there with maybe a referee's decision, or a sloppy free kick, or the first 5 minutes we're chasing the game. But I think on the whole, I'm really pleased with 99% of that performance. It's a real good performance, and if we keep playing like that, we'll have no worse staying in the Championship.
What I thought was really good as well was at the end, and just like at the end of the Reading game, everyone looked disappointed. Everyone really did look like,
it's not like we've not been in the game. We're really in the game, and it's been nicked away from us at the last minute. Happens, but it happens the other way too, and I'm hoping that the second half of the season, or the next part of the season after international breaks, come in again and we get these. I mean, the season is a long old season. I think there's 39 games to go. There's 100 and however many points still available, and we only need about 50 of them, and I'm pretty sure that there's enough in that dressing room to get those.
So you must, I guess, really put into perspective that it's still very early in the season.
Indeed, yes. The fact that 100 plus points are still available is good to hear. And Gareth clearly believes in the sort of, well, eventually, if you're not getting the decisions,
they'll go for you.
Exactly, your luck will turn at some point, and you will start getting the decisions across a 46 game season. So I thought that that was quite good. It was a little bit windy, by the way, at Carrow Road. And it was one of those situations, it seemed to sort of wait until actually each person was interviewing Gareth to then really, really do these big gusts of wind, so you couldn't really hear what he was saying.
Have you got any other highlights of your trip to East Anglia? We've established windy. Any other observations?
Windy, and everybody very friendly.
Did you see Delia?
Didn't see Delia.
Ed Balls?
No. No, didn't see Ed Balls either.
Ed Sheeran? No, he's Ipswich, isn't he?
No, didn't see Ed Sheeran. There were a lot of Wycombe sort of fans, or they're not Wycombe fans, but the people who Wycombe took, who sat in the director's box, were very, very, very vocal. I know I say this every time, but they really were on Saturday. I don't know whether Pete Couhig had taken a load of his contingent, because it did feel again almost like there was a little away section. And the other bizarre thing about the game, and I know that Norwich obviously clearly felt that this was bizarre as well, because they did keep putting up on their various screens things about, let the fans in and whatever. But certain Norwich fans were allowed at the game into one of the lounges at Carrow Road. However, they weren't allowed anywhere near the pitch, and the pitch had to be curtained off so that they couldn't see it, but they watched the game on TV. And you think, well, hang on, how odd is that you're allowed to sit in a room and watch a game of football at a football stadium, but you're not allowed to sit in the open air in the stadium and watch the same game?
Similarly, there was a West Ham game that was available in a local cinema.
Yeah,
and you think, well, that's indoors.
It's just mad. Who's making the rules?
Football 2020.
Yeah,
Discuss.
Crazy.
Before we move on to the Watford game, news of the poll of this week.
Indeed, yes. So Uche Ikpeazu has been called up this week internationally, and so we want to know who else you think should get an international cap. We have narrowed it down to 3 people, one of which, and I think he'd be absolutely brilliant, is Joe Jacobson. Fantastic free kicks, clearly, and the fact, I'm sure, that Wales would be very grateful, the fact that he can score from corners.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Fred Onyedimna, obviously, another candidate, and the final candidate, Scott Cashket. No, that's possibly a slight long shot, because, Scott very much is English, but even so, he's playing so well in the Championship that we thought we'd add him to the list. And you can also go for another as well, and let us know who that person would be.
So let's move on to talk about Watford. We haven't mentioned how. Yes, if you can tweet us at Wycombe Sound.
Oh, indeed, yes.
And use the hashtag TWWS.
Yeah, we need to send that together.
Yes, that could be our new thing. Needs more work. So Watford on Tuesday night, you were going as as an independent, I suppose you might say.
Yeah, no, I was very much going with the light and dark blue quarters on, even though, and I did say this to Luke, and I have admitted it on the air before, I was born in the hospital next door to Vicarage Road, and was brought up in the area. So, naturally, I do believe in supporting your local team. And actually still am a Watford season ticket holder, as well as now living in Wycombe and also being a Wycombe season ticket holder. Hold season tickets for both, and pretty much get to a fair number of games each season. So yes, I did go along to the game on Tuesday night, but very much with my Wycombe hat on, mainly because we needed the points.
Yes,
and also, in the grand scheme of things, really. Watford didn't need the help. They didn't need the support. The team that's just come down from the Premier League with all of that talent should really quite comfortably be able to beat Wycombe Wanderers. But clearly, it didn't happen like that, and Wycombe played fantastically well, really, really well, thoroughly deserved it, and was the irony was, so often this season we've said, we're so unlucky not to get a point. Well, actually, on Tuesday night, so unlucky not to get all 3 points.
And so exciting, speaking to you after the game as well, to hear of the many, many chances that were created as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing, that particularly in the first half, Wycombe created 3 or 4 chances, in particular the one that Bayo blasted over the bar, that, really, we should have gone in at half-time, possibly 1, possibly 2-0 up. It was also nice to hear that, there were comments at the end from the Watford manager and also from Ben Foster, very, very complimentary and very much saying, actually, we were very lucky that we didn't lose that game, because really, I think they felt that they deserved it. Ben Foster got man of the match, and I think that says it all. And you could see just the quality of him, how he is not still playing really A in the Premier League and B for England. I know he retired sort of from England, but he's a fantastic keeper.
It must have been so exciting to see a second goal as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you did sort of feel that it wasn't going to happen. It felt very familiar. Once Watford scored, you thought, oh, okay, we've done really well. I can't quite see how we're going to get back into this. And certainly for the 10, 15 minutes after Watford scored, we didn't really look like we were going to be able to get back in it. But then, set piece, Anthony Stewart doing again like he did at Wembley, super goal. And, again, we had chances after that. And clearly, put the ball in the net. Another Joe Jacobson special, which came possibly off Alex Samuel, Ben Foster, depending on who you speak to. But again, unfortunately, the referee, who clearly doesn't know about JJ and his corners, decided that somehow Ben Foster had got fouled and so disallowed it. Having said that, though, then I think we have to also talk about the Glenn Murray chance right at the end for Watford, when all of a sudden, there he was unmarked in the area, and it really looked easier for him to hit the target than to put it wide. And again, you thought, every game this season, we know exactly what's going to happen now. The net's going to bulge, and our hearts are going to be broken. And goodness me, he put it wide. And, and we all breathed a sigh of relief, and quite quickly after that, the referee blew the whistle, and, and yes, the celebrations went on quite long into the night.
Well, we'll hear from Joe Jacobson about his prize-winning corners in a few moments' time, but first, Bob spoke to Gareth after the game.
You were so unlucky as well, I felt, not to actually get all 3 points against the side who beat Liverpool back in February.
Yeah, it's awesome to say that, and when you do say that, it's a real belief. These boys are stepping up their game, Anthony Stewart, goal, what a fantastic finish that was, and chances. Scotty Cashcott looks lively in every game he plays in. Bayo being back, I thought was an absolute talisman captain's performance by him. Really thought we deserved all 3 points tonight, and if anyone says different, then they see football a little bit differently to me. But it was a real complete performance, apart from conceding that one goal, and we'll have to work on that. But I'm sure Saturday will come quick and get these boys recovered for the next battle and the next points on the board that's going to keep us in this championship.
I thought what was so impressive as well was that actually you came from behind.
Yeah, and that's a step. First of all, it's the first point. It was a comeback again, which is something new to us. We scored the first goal, and actually Norwich on Saturday, we came back into that one as well. So there's two times there against two Premier League sides really set up to go back to the Premier League. They've scored against us, and we've not accepted that. We've come back and we've got back in the games, which has been a real powerful statement from Wycombe Wanderers. So absolutely brilliant. Really looking forward to Saturday now, and then we've got Birmingham and Forest coming after that. These all sound like cup ties to me, and it's awesome just to be in there.
Well, and it is wonderful as well, and I think people who've seen every game will know that actually we are competing in this division.
The last 4 games, definitely. First 3 give me a little time to work this league out, and I thought we did in Blackburn and Swansea. Obviously, we got taught lessons about what's going to happen in this league and how we have to sort it out. But the last 3 games, we've played 3 different formations to try and negate what the opposition do, and I think we've been brilliant. I think Millwall would deserve something. The corner goes straight in. We could have get a point. Norwich on Saturday, I mean, the more I talk about the referee's decisions there, the worse I feel. And tonight, again, we've scored direct from a corner, which Joe Jacobson it's not a rarity for him. He does it often, and the referee's seen something in there which I haven't seen again, but I'm maybe blue quarter tinted glasses, you never know. But brilliant performances, and if we keep playing like that, we'll have no worries of staying in this league this season. Really proud, and that one's for our American owners as well. They've backed me to the hilt, and I'm hoping they've seen that tonight and gone, you know what, we're proud of what we are, and we're Wycombe Wanderers.
It does sound fantastic. You get a feel there's a bit of a corner being turned. That makes more sense. These are actual words now. Fantastic as well for Joe Jacobson, who this week has been named in the Sky Bet Championship Midweek Team of the Week.
Hooray! And very well deserved.
Absolutely. He's having a great season so far, and caught up with Bob afterwards as well.
I asked you before the season began whether you practiced scoring from corners, and I'm pretty sure you said no. Are you sure you weren't lying?
Look, we sometimes we'll do set pieces with Dobbo, the assistant manager, and he goes through where to hit the ball, and sometimes he says shoot. Sometimes he tells me, to have a look if he sees weaknesses in the opposition. And today wasn't actually one of those days, but we have a few different corner routines that we do, and a few little subtle changes. And today, we scored from one, we nearly scored from another. So it's an important aspect of the game. There's lots of free kicks, lots of corners go on every game of football in the world. So why not try and make the most of all of them?
I've seen all of the games this season, and you've competed in almost all of those. Today I felt you were really unlucky not to actually get all 3 points.
Yeah, so do I. I think we haven't got the points that we probably deserve this season, especially the last probably 2 or 3 games at Reading and Norwich. I thought we performed really well, and like I said in the change room, we've grown every week, and we've managed to kind of have that belief that we do deserve to be here, and we're capable of being here and competing at this level. And we've played, Reading, who are top of the league, and we've played Norwich and Watford, 2 teams coming down from the Premier League who are expected to go straight back up, and more than held our own against both of those teams. So, we know it's a tough league, but we've got to have the belief that we're good enough to compete. And, I think tonight will give us that springboard to think, right, we're good enough to get points and score goals, and hopefully we can move up the table.
How good was it to have Bayo tonight doing the little flick-ons that he does?
Yeah, he's a huge asset for us, and when he's on the pitch, we've got to use him. There's no point in having him on the pitch and not using him, but I think people don't realise how good he is with the ball at his feet, and he created a lot of chances today, holding up the ball, setting people, and that starts attacks and things like that, and he's integral to how we play. So he has been a big miss, and now that he's back, and he's obviously not 100% fit yet, but the more minutes he gets on the pitch, the stronger he looks. And I think today he wasn't supposed to play as many minutes as he did, but he felt good, he felt strong, he was being important for us, and he was causing havoc for the opposition. So I don't think the gaffer wanted to take him off at any point, but again, it's another positive for us to have him back involved, and Big Ooch as well coming back fit is another huge thing for us.
I noticed at the end that Ben Foster seemed to come in the dressing room. Did he have a chat to you?
No, I didn't speak to him. I think a few of the boys did, and I think the save in the first half from Scotty, I think it's one of the best saves I've seen live. I don't know how he's read it. I've not spoke to him, but for their goalkeeper to get man of the match says a lot about how the game went today, and that's why he's an international and played in the Premier League for so long, because he's a top goalkeeper.
Yeah, I mean, you watched him tonight and thought, well, he could still be playing for England, really.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I think he's more than capable. Last season he was one of the top goalkeepers in the Premier League, so fair play to him to still be at that level at 37, 38, whatever he is, and it looks like he's got many more years in him.
Joe Jacobson still leading our poll as well as to who you think deserves an international call-up from the few games that we've had already this season, and also fantastic to catch up with Matt Cecil after the game as well to find out about the match day programme.
So tonight, for the first time in probably years and years, there wasn't a programme. I know this is something that fans actually get, from particularly one like me who does collect them, is quite passionate about. Can you just explain, I think we probably all understand the reasoning, but can you explain why there wasn't a programme tonight?
Yeah, I'm just like you, Bob. I think my dad's attic is still full of programmes from the 90s, and as a kid I remember coming to games, picking them up, flicking through them, doing the crosswords, seeing who the mascot was, and they were a real keepsake, and particularly for me as programme editor for the 5 years previous to this one, a real pride of joy when it landed in the office on a Friday and we'd flick through it and take real pride in it. So we were really excited to launch, a kind of a revamped programme. We brought on board a new programme editor this summer, with the belief that it won't be long until fans are back, and every programme is going to be a collector's item. We're in the Championship, some of the teams we're playing, the prestige of the whole season means that these collector's items are going to be a real commodity and something that people are going to want. And at that point it looked like we'd have fans back soon. The pilot events were running, and it wouldn't be long until a number of fans were coming through the door, and that's where we'd be selling a lot of programmes. So instead we've had to rely on the model of having them posted out to fans, and obviously that comes with additional charges of postage, and unfortunately the first 3 editions have sold well below forecast, and we've been making a loss, and quite a heady loss, particularly given the time that goes into it, and it's just not something that we can sustain. And it's kind of a case of cutting our losses now at the moment, I think. There are minimum orders and minimum quantities involved with ordering programmes. It's only fair to the publishers that, they have to cover their costs as well. And so just with the pattern that we were looking at from the first 3 programme sales was really disappointing, and we couldn't keep losing, quite substantial sums of money every week. So it's not the end of the programme. But as with many things in football, COVID has put a big dent in a particular plan, and unfortunately, and it is unfortunate for the relatively small number of people that were buying and enjoying the programmes, we're not able to sustain it really until fans come back. But as I say, it's not the end of the programme, it's just a brief blip in the road.
I think completely understandable, everything that you said. The one thing I would say is that it was marvellous this season. It really, really impressive. It's always been good, but this season it really was very, very, a quality product.
Yeah, and as I say, we brought on board a programme editor, a lad called Henry, who had great experience at Reading previously. And it was his job really to be devoted to it because, as I said, I'd been doing it for 5 years in amongst a lot of other jobs. And I wanted it to be quality, and I wanted time to be spent on it. And Henry nailed it straight on. The design was excellent. We had to put the price up, and maybe that, has put some people off buying it. But again, there's production costs. We've got to meet our margins. We had to pay Henry. Henry's putting a lot of work into it. We don't expect him to do that for free. And so we did the sums of what we hoped would work, and based on a model of selling a certain number of programmes, and that just wasn't being met. So, for now, that's on pause. But we hope to bring it back as soon as we get fans back, and hopefully that's soon.
Fantastic. So Parklife will be back.
Parklife goes on.
And on and on. Look at the joggers running round and round. They love a bit of it. No, okay. Thank you very much to Matt Cecil for speaking to us about Parklife. Still to come on the programme tonight, we will be speaking to 1950s Wycombe legend Dennis Atkins.
Oh, this is my bit.
Yeah, I thought, a bit like Ant and Dec do. I thought that's how we were going to do it,
Yes, we're the Ant and Dec of this programme.
We are.
We'll be chatting to Will the Chef.
Will the Chef.
We'll be asking, will the Chef
be cooking?
Some questions. All that to come here at Wycombe Sound.
This is Wycombe Sound.
Welcome back to the second half of the Wycombe Wanderers Show. I must say a big thank you to the Ex-Players Association, Alan Hutchison and JDT for helping with sorting out some players. Last week we spoke to Ken Wilson, who a couple of times I referred to as a striker, knowing full well he's a winger.
Oh dear.
I also told JDT we'd be speaking to Terry Evans this week, meaning next week.
That's very bad.
But apart from that, it's all going really well.
2 out of 10, Colin. This week we're speaking to someone who is an outside right. Way back when. Mr. Dennis Atkins.
Yes, who actually played in the first game against Watford in 1959.
Indeed, when Wanderers went down 5-1, but he got the one.
I saw an advert in the Evening Standard, and it said, Wycombe Wanderers Football Club require players all positions, apply J. McCormick, Lokes Park. So my father, who was a very keen player, he said, you go for it. So I did. And I went for trials, in the late summer, and met other people who also were there trialling. And as a result of the trial, I was signed up and started playing straight away that season.
And what were your first impressions?
It was a bit awe-inspiring, because it was a step up in a way. I'd had a bit of experience in lower football, junior football, but, to go over there to see what was going on and the class of the players that were there at the time. And so, I was delighted that I was able to be picked out and to carry on playing.
And fascinating to be arriving at the club in their very first coach as well.
That was the whole point. We went, there were a group of us that actually did, and the decade starting in the 50s was when Wycombe, when Jimmy McCormick arrived, he culled some of the old players, all of whom went and played for Aylesbury United, which included Jock McCullum, who was a legend at the time, and I didn't know that because I was not a Wycombe person. And Jock went to Aylesbury with the others, and as a consequence that left gaps in the team, and I was one of those that was fortunate enough to be picked for the first team for the first match.
So what was it like playing under Jimmy, a former Spurs player?
Wonderful. If you speak to one or two of us that are still alive, and Dick Tunn was another one, he instigated the push and run football which Spurs played at the time, because Jimmy had played there. And so we actually trained very much on the push and run sort of football style, and it was really good because we did play very well that first season. I don't think we lost until about nearly Christmas, but it was wonderful. We used to train in the tea house, the top stand on Lokes Park, and we used to push and run in there to our heart's content, and then played it out on the pitch as a consequence.
So being a striker as you were, it must be a fantastic position to play in, but also, must have some great players around you as well.
There were. I think probably one or two went and moved on, but there were some great players. And those first few seasons, of course, you had people that were brought in. Jimmy McCormick only lasted for 12 months, which was in a way unfortunate, but Sid Can came in, and he brought his particular way of dealing with things and getting players, and we had a lot of new players from various clubs from around, and they came into the club and they became the stars of the 50s, which, people like Cliff Trott, Jackie Tomlin, Jimmy Mooring, and people like that. Dennis Sarrett became a sort of first-team regular in goal, of course. So, yes, it was quite a time.
I've been told as well that one of the weapons in your arsenal was one of the most ferocious shots that had ever been seen by the fans.
Well, they say that it's very flattering, but I did pack a pretty hefty punch, but I lacked other things, of course. But nevertheless, that seems to have stuck, and there we are.
What are your kind of overall memories? Do you have a particular favourite match that stands out, or a particular period?
I think probably the first match at Leytonstone, when I was, the very first game was won. I also think probably, I didn't play at Wembley as I was one of the 13, but was not able to play because the others were fit enough to play and better. But nevertheless, wonderful day it was for the whole club at Wembley. Although we lost 3-1, never mind. It was such an event. And I can remember when we got back to Wycombe after the match, we stopped at the cricket ground on the way in from London, and the supporters towed the coach by hand from there to the Red Lion in the High Street. And in the High Street there was the most enormous crowd, and I was lucky enough being part of the squad, as it were, and we went up on the balcony of the old Red Lion and faced all the crowd who were cheering as though we'd won the match comfortably. But it was such an experience that I shall never ever forget, being towed in the coach from the cricket ground. But that was one game. The Watford game was a game I always will remember, of course, simply because of the circumstances of playing against Watford with my partner, as he turned out to be. I became a solicitor with him, and Jim Harrowell, who was a director of Watford, we had a bit of banter about that game before we played. And then, of course, the press made hay out of it, and as a consequence, I remember it much better than probably most.
As you say, it must have been incredible to be part of that sort of era, but also, people still today talk about that 57 final.
Well, it was something. I think probably we weren't 100% fit. I think, one or two players had struggled to get really fit, and that left out people like Jimmy Mooring, who had been an outstanding and was outstanding. He'd got a broken arm and he couldn't play because of the cast that he had on his arm. And so, Bishop Auckland were the better side. I think that's fair to say. But Wycombe really put up a wonderful performance.
And great to have such great support at Wembley as well.
Oh, the support Wycombe had, you have to bear in mind from the 50s when I first started playing, through that decade, that we had crowds that were double the ones that Wycombe now get for regular home games. I can remember one game, you asked me one particular game, I remember we played in the Amateur Cup at home against Marine Crosby, who were a very talented northern side, very fancied by other people. And we played at Wycombe in front of 12,000 people. That was the very first year we were there in the 51. And that was quite something. And I can remember that we were in the Red Lion having pre-match lunch, and Jimmy McCormick said, well, if we get a penalty, what do we do? Who's going to take it? And no one volunteered. But I volunteered to play it, to take any penalty we had, and as a matter of fact, we had one. And I managed to drill that home at the hospital end, and we won 1-0. So that's one game I do remember well, as a consequence.
No, it's fantastic to get your recollections and stories. As you say, even just pre-match meal at the Red Lion Hotel sounds sort of that really conjures up some great imagery.
Well, it was a wonderful time. The Red Lion, we used to go and have meals there after the match, and the manager used to give us as a bonus. In those days, of course, there was some rationing still going on, and I can remember that the manager, Reg, he would dish out packets of tea and bacon to players who he thought had played well during that match. Quite extraordinary.
You can't imagine that happening today, can you?
No, you can't imagine it, but you can't also imagine the size of crowds that we used to play in front of. The reserves used to get over 1,000 watching, and the first team, of course, had 7,000 or 8,000 quite regularly.
What do you sort of put that down to? Do you think it's just less to do in those days?
I think people they were local, they had not much to do. There were few cars, so they used to bus in from all the villages, from all around. And, there was something about it, I suppose, to go and watch football at the Isthmian League level, which it was.
I was going to say, it seems strange to have massive crowds at an amateur level, yet, the professional teams don't seem to attract quite such big audiences.
I think people have many more things to do now, haven't they? They tend to go out in their motor car, go on holidays and families, and I think the relationship between the families is slightly different, and the husband used to decide he would watch football and the wife could do what she felt she wanted to do. But nowadays, I think, there's much more pressure on people to be able to support. And I think the sort of people in Wycombe now are slightly different now, if I'm not being unkind, but, it's a totally different sort of town in the 50s to what it now is. It's much multicultural, which it wasn't then.
Of course, but the club still retains a real family feel, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And when I, have contacts, and I think that we meet up every sort of October, November, all the oldies from the 50s into the 60s, and there are, 18 of us maybe of those days, and they're gradually fading, but the support we get is because we all were friends and created a most fantastic club spirit, which we all shared. And, we kept friends and still are of those that we still, are still alive or able. So it really is a most fantastic club. And you've got people like John Taylor and Alan Hutchinson, who created this old Wycombe Wanderers players, which has been so successful, and it's so much appreciated by us old players. We don't feel lost or left, forgotten. I think that's the best way of putting it. And we're just part of that club still. And that is something. It's really special.
It must be so nice as well for you to be able to share your stories with, similar people who, perhaps who are at the 57 final, or similarly, more modern players who've been to, say, an FA Trophy final or a playoff final as well. Yes.
I think they look back at our era as a sort of starting point. But, of course, since then, the club has performed at a much greater and higher level and achieved things that we would never have even thought of in our time. I can remember that Frank Adams, who gave the ground to the club on the basis, that's the old Oaks Park, on the basis that it remained as an amateur club, it was then totally different as a concept. Now, of course, the club became gradually more semi-professional, full professional, and now, but never losing what we shared at the time we played.
Obviously, aside from the money aspect, but do you ever wish that you were playing now, or do you think that when you played that was a special time?
I wouldn't, not so sure I would have been as happy playing now. It's a different game totally, of course. I think players are so much fitter in some ways. Although we trained hard, I think now the training is even greater, and the speed at which the ball is pushed around is so much greater. I'm not sure that, for myself personally, that I would have been able to play as well as I possibly did at the time when I was playing. I think it's a totally different game. I mean, the long ball, the tackling, and so forth. You could tackle without there being any fear of being sent off, for one thing. So it was a much more physical game then.
No, of course. It must be such a nice feeling as well to be part of the history of the club.
Oh, indeed. It's very pleasurable to know, and to, as I say, the fact that we've got this old players association, and that we meet up once a year, or have done up until last year, and we meet up and to sort of share our thoughts of what it all meant to us during that time. And it was hard, we had to train, of course, but we made such many friends. I mean, we would go out socially together, quite apart from the football. Many of us, we used to go out so many places, theatres and so forth, with the families we used to mix.
No, it's a really nice kind of feeling as well, as you say, to be part of that. And it must be extraordinary to think now, from when you were playing, that the club's now in the second tier of English football.
I couldn't believe it. I think they were punched above their weight, almost, you could say. And I know it's tough this year, but they'll obviously gain a great deal of experience from it. But I could never have envisaged that the club would have ever reached such pinnacles, as it were. But they obviously have done well, and they deserve, the success that they've got. The pity is that they haven't got more crowds to sort of bring more money in to be able to improve some of the quality perhaps that's needed to keep at that level.
No, definitely. Also, it'd be great to get a bit of insight, sort of what you did post-Wycombe as well.
Well, I was a solicitor, you see. I qualified as a solicitor when I was playing, and obviously carried on at that, and I'm my practice in Berkhamsted, which is still there. My youngest son is a partner there now in place of me, and the firm is going on. So I carried on, obviously, working as a solicitor and did for 50 years.
Must be fantastic to look back on sort of two careers, if you like.
Well, it is. They're sort of comparable, and the fact that I'm a Berkhamsted boy, if I can put it that way. I've lived in or around Berkhamsted all my life, so although it's only 15 miles away, nevertheless, Wycombe is in my heart, as it were, because of what it gave to me.
Thank you so much to Dennis Atkins for speaking to us on the Wycombe Wanderers Show. I was just chatting about the fact that I've got the Watford-Wycombe programme in front of me from the 1950s, and Dennis has got a little bit in the programme. So this is the description of Dennis. Dennis Atkins, outside right, has been with the club since he was very young, but had a spell with St Albans City. A very powerful player with the strongest shot in the game. On his appearances with the senior team, has proved his worth as a goal scorer and a very fast player. Has represented the Berks and Bucks South versus North, and I believe his boss is a Watford director, as we rightly know he was now.
Nice feature of the show now. Bob reads to us.
Indeed. Bob reads from old programmes.
We'll do that every week from now on.
Absolutely. No, I like that idea. We are still running our poll on Twitter. Who do you think should qualify for an international cap after Uche Ikpeazu became the latest Wycombe player to do so? We have given you the options of Joe Jacobson, Scott Kashket and Fred Onyedimna, and we're also asking you for another player if you so wish to, and let us know who that player is. We have had a tweet in from Morgan on Twitter. Good evening, Morgan.
Big hello to Morgan.
Who says JJ for Wales would be awesome, and I think he would be absolutely awesome, just from the free kick and corner point of view. And also asks, could Kashket qualify for Israel? Now, I have looked into this, and I can't actually find the answer as to whether or not, if you are Jewish, you automatically qualify for Israel. Possibly somebody out there can tell us. If you know, then do tweet us, hashtag TWWS. But a good question. Scott definitely, has represented England in various sort of like even sports previously. Whether or not would he represent Israel or England, I don't quite know. But certainly, I would think, if he was good enough, and he's certainly proving to be a bit of a handful in the Championship, maybe an England call one day.
Almost 50-50 between Joe and Scott at the moment. We'll let you know how that wraps up. Before the close of the show, we're chatting to Will the Chef next.
Love music, love talk, love Wycombe Sound.
Final part of the Wycombe Wanderers Show this evening, before we look ahead to the Sheffield Wednesday game. Another new feature. We've already had Bob read to us from an old programme. Now, this could be a new feature anyway. We ask Will the Chef.
Indeed. As you probably know, today and tomorrow, Wycombe Wanderers have been inviting local families to go down to Adams Park and enjoy a free takeaway meal. This is in recognition of the excellent work that Manchester United and England forward Marcus Rashford has done in campaigning for free meals for underprivileged school children during the holiday period. It was David Wheeler who initiated the project, and he went along to the club today, along with Daryl Horgan, to provide support in the kitchen. Joining us on the line now, though, is the man who was actually responsible for cooking the food. It is Will. Good evening, Will.
Hello there, good evening.
Thank you so much for joining us. So you are Will the Chef. Are you the chef actually officially for Wycombe Wanderers?
I'm a chef that works alongside Wycombe Wanderers, providing hospitality and catering for hopefully match day events once we're allowed back to the stadium.
Okay, so very much it's sort of the hospitality side. Do you ever cook for the players?
I haven't at the moment. The restrictions through to obviously the COVID situation we're all suffering from. They have Wycombe have their own chef at the training ground providing meals for the players that come match day that we I don't actually get to eat them.
Oh, okay. I mean, interesting to know, though, that they do actually have their own chef and just how much football has changed. And almost presumably that is slightly so that after training's finished, they don't sort of think, right, okay, well, I'm going to go into the Eden Centre, I'm going to go to Wycombe Marshall, maybe have a KFC or stop at Beaconsfield services on the way home.
Absolutely. It's all about eating balanced diets and fitness for these players at this level.
Yeah, and very, very important too. So tell us about today and what happened down at Adams Park at lunchtime.
We had a very big day down there today. Obviously, through David Wheeler approaching the football club regarding Marcus Rashford's great appeal to help provide food and meals for these underprivileged children. They went to the club asking for us to assist. We had a quick meeting in the offices with the commercial guys, myself, another caterer last week in High Wycombe, all pulled together, phoned our local suppliers up. We got hold of a load of free produce, cooked up a great meal for anyone that wants to come along yesterday and today. So we're cooking in the range of about 400 meals, providing over the 2 days.
And that's quite a lot of meals then. That's a decent amount, presumably.
It certainly is, yeah. Small army, shall I say, in the kitchen, working away, beavering away, getting these meals done. The lads to come down from the club to give us a hand as well, which is fantastic to get their support because they believe in this as much as we do.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is wonderful, a wonderful initiative by all involved. And I know that there's quite a lot of organisations as well. It's the Sports and Education Trust who've got behind it. I understand that Dreams have got behind it as well. So there's a lot, lot of goodwill from the community behind this scheme.
There certainly is. I mean, local supermarkets have assisted as well with providing produce, local farm shops. We've also delivered to Hills Cafe in Micklefield, which they're going to be delivering or handing out, the meals tomorrow for us as well, so we can contribute with lots of local community events that are happening, just supporting people in this time.
Okay, fantastic. I think we'll leave it there because your mobile phone is ever so slightly dodgy, but thank you so much for joining us on the Wycombe Wanderers Show. As you say, so if you are interested, you can go down to Adams Park tomorrow between 12 and 2 o'clock for a free takeaway meal. Pretty much no questions asked whatsoever. There are other places as well in Wycombe that are doing this initiative. It's obviously the last day because it is the last day of half term tomorrow. So Buck Student Union are doing it. If you go along to the Lounge, which is their cafe on Queen Alexandra Road, that's between 12 and 2 o'clock, then they will provide a meal for school-age children. You can also go, as Will said, to the Hills Cafe in Micklefield. They are providing free meals all week for kids. And there's also the Tara's Londis store in Brinkley Avenue as well. If you take along an adult, then you can get a free food from Tara's Londis with no purchase required. But a brilliant initiative, really from everybody, from so many organisations, but fantastic that Wycombe Wanderers are involved as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Great work by the club, and as you say, that's tomorrow between 12 and 2, which is a nice way to round off the half term, if you like. And also, coming up on Saturday, of course, a game against the only team with
indeed
fewer points or less points than Wycombe in the table, Sheffield Wednesday, which, as Gareth mentioned a little earlier on, some of the teams coming up sounds like a lot of cup ties.
Yeah, I mean, it has been quite exciting. Or, if we hadn't have been looking for our first point, I think we would have been thinking, oh, wow, Norwich, Watford, Sheffield Wednesday, Birmingham City, Nottingham Forest. It does sound, like a sort of an FA Cup run or something like that. And fantastic that actually, we're playing these teams now, on merit because we are in the same division as them. And you look at some of these teams, and Sheffield Wednesday in particular, they got off to quite a good start. Clearly, they started on -12 because of the various financial regulations of the EFL that they fell foul of. And for a little while I was sort of thinking, oh goodness me, I think we were all quite pleased that yes, there was a team who was on a considerable number of points below us, and suddenly it looked like, well, they were going to just wipe out those points within about 4 games. But actually now it hasn't happened that way, and they have lost their last 3, so they're currently stuck on -4. And yes, it doesn't seem to be a very happy ship there at the moment, in particular the fact that they lost to Rotherham on Wednesday night 3-0. I also wonder whether that might make a difference as well, the fact that actually they played on Wednesday and obviously we played on Tuesday night, and just that extra 24 hours rest, is that gonna go in our favour? Hopefully it is.
And having seen especially the last 2 games, do you feel that the players will really have had a boost going into the Sheffield Wednesday game with improved performances, improved chances, and
definitely.
Obviously goals as well, and getting a point now too?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a very, very positive place to be, but they can't help but be inspired by the performance over Norwich, but then particularly what happened against Watford, that actually, yes, they performed really, really well, and got something out of the game finally. You know, that was the crushing thing about the Norwich game, was that, you know, we played so well and then it was snatched away from us right at the last moment. The fact that that didn't then happen against Watford was brilliant, and I think, definitely will be, something that the players will be sort of taking into the game against Sheffield Wednesday, and ensuring that actually, they get off to a similar start, because, you know, they really went for Watford right from the word go, and it was, you know, it was very noticeable. I do wonder, particularly, say, with the Watford game and, you know, a couple of others already this season, so Reading and Millwall, you did get the impression that maybe partly our position in the table, partly because we're this small club, perceived small club who's come up from League One, I think we are being slightly underestimated, particularly in the first half by these teams, and you do very much get the sense that actually, you know, at half-time, the manager of the opposition is having quite a stern word in his players' ears, because definitely Watford, Reading and Millwall all came out in the second half looking a lot more up for it and a lot more suddenly, you know, taking the game seriously, whereas in the first half possibly they didn't in quite the same way.
And you get the impression, certainly from hearing Gareth's comments, that, you know, Wycombe's philosophy, if you like, is very much to make it difficult to play against them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, straight away that's what we were doing with Watford, with their back three. We were trying to make them make mistakes, and the fact that you've got somebody like Scott Cashcat, who is so quick and so fast, you know, he does chase down all of those passes between the defenders and the goalkeeper, and you can see the mistakes coming, and clearly against Millwall that's exactly what happened. Against Norwich again as well, you know, it was a mistake that really led to our goal, so, you know, long may that continue. Interestingly, Sheffield Wednesday are slightly struggling at the back, so they lost centre-backs Aidan Flint and Tom Lees to an injury and to a red card in their game against Rotherham, so neither will feature at Adams Park on Saturday, meaning that they only have one fit recognised central defender. So again, I think that, you know, that's probably playing into our hands, particularly if we place a front three of Bayo, Scott Cashcat, and then maybe either Fred or Daryl Horgan. I think we could make it quite a long afternoon for them.
And you definitely noticed on Tuesday as well, the return of Akinfenwa was a real boost.
Oh, completely, yeah. And as I said to Joe Jacobson, you know, he just, it's the little things that he does that bring so much to the team. So it is his little flick-ons. It's the way that he is able to bring the ball down. So, you know, so there'll be a goal kick, or there'll be, say, a free kick from JJ coming forward, and Bayo is able to bring the ball down, control the ball, and then lay it off to Cashcat, to Horgan. I mean, particularly with Scott, you know, him and Bayo do just seem to have this telepathic sort of like relationship, where the one knows exactly where the other is, even if they're not looking at them. And, you know, and it caused Watford so many problems on Tuesday night. And again, as I said, I didn't really expect that would be the case. I thought it would be Watford causing us lots of problems, and, you know, and Wycombe not really getting much of a look in. And it was the other way round. As with so often this season, you would have watched that and you certainly wouldn't have known which team was 23rd in the table and which one had just come down from the Premier League.
So do you get the sense from watching the players that they really are kind of growing into the division, if you like?
Definitely, yeah. And I think that's one of the really good things. You know, we're not, with all due respect to this club, we're not Fulham. We're not, you know, we're not sort of, in a division where you just think, oh, actually, you know, yeah, we're going to take the money and just go back down again. And, you know, again, apologies to Fulham fans who are listening, but that's sort of, you know, I've seen a couple of Fulham games this season. That's the slight impression that you get, that actually they're just being outclassed. So, sure, we were outclassed in the game against Blackburn. We were also pretty outclassed in the game against Swansea, where they never really got going once they'd scored the goals. You know, you still got the impression that they had a few gears that they could go through. Since then, you know, we've played really, really well in every game. We've competed well, and the fact that those games have come against Reading, who are now 5 points clear, and against Norwich and Watford, who both were in the Premier League last season, speaks absolute volumes. So I think, you know, we can go into Saturday's game with, you know, a lot of hope and a lot of heart.
And interesting, Gareth said, with the likes of Nottingham Forest and Birmingham to come, they do sound like cup ties, but really relishing the chance to have the opportunity to play these players.
Yeah,
these
definitely. And, you know, and you look at Birmingham, well, you know, they've had a rough old, you know, a few seasons really where, you know, they've been flirting with relegation. Nottingham Forest clearly this season, you know, have not got off to a very good start. They've already sacked their manager. They've now got Chris Hughton in charge, who I think probably will sort them out. But, you know, again, that's, you know, that's been a good thing. And Sheffield Wednesday, as I've already said, you know, clearly have got their problems, and there's definitely a lot of fan unrest there. Clearly that, doesn't now reflect itself actually inside the stadium, but is definitely, something to consider.
Should we bring you the results of the poll?
Indeed, yes, do. The way that you said that, I assume that you have.
I don't have the.
Shall we bring you the results of the poll? He says.
Via producer.
Right, here we go. Okay, I do now have the results.
Should we rehearse this?
The returning officer does have the results in front of him. That would be slightly embarrassing, wouldn't it? So the results are in, and very much it was between Joe Jacobson and Scott Cashgett, and JJ is the winner. He is the one that you think will get the international cap, or should get the international cap for Wales. He got 54% to Scott Cashgett's 46%.
Next week I'll do the results of the poll.
Yes,
I've made a note. Also next week we'll be chatting to Terry Evans. Also Charlotte Bagshaw will be hearing from her as well, as the Wycombe Wanderers ladies season, league season, kicked off with a fantastic win against Woodley on Sunday. Hopefully they'll have a second win to talk to us about next week as well. And
I will give you my reaction and opinions to the games over Sheffield Wednesday and also Birmingham City, which of course is next Wednesday evening.
Much to look forward to. Don't forget there's the podcast as well to catch up on the Wycombe Wanderers Show. You can, if you've just tuned in, you can hear our chat with Dennis Atkins, and hopefully perhaps manager Gareth Ainsworth will be handing out bacon and tea to the players if they do really well.